Hey everybody, it's Catherine Middlebrooks of BRB Yoga. I wanted to come on today and answer the absolute number one most asked question that I get, which is, what are your thoughts on abdominal splinting after childbirth? So I'm going to answer that, and then I'm going to share, just walk you around my RV, because I was talking about our 8 months in an RV last week and people were interested and curious, and I figured, well, why don't I show you all around? So first, let me answer the question. Okay, splinting. So what is splinting? Well, splinting is basically wrapping your belly after having a baby. And there are some people who, like, hands down say this is something you absolutely need to do to, like, heal your core after you have a baby. There are some people who are like, don't ever splint because it's going to set you back. I usually fall in the middle of spectrums because I don't ever think that usually one recommendation is blanket correct for everyone. And that's the case in splinting as well. So here are my thoughts on splinting. All right. In general, I think that splinting your abdomen can be very valuable if it is done right after you have a baby. So particularly those first 2 weeks postpartum, you are simply completely unsupported in your core, right? Your abdominal muscles have stretched to their limit. Then you had a baby. So they are really weak, really stretched. It's really hard to find the engagement in the core. And then beyond that, you're very tired and you're doing all sorts of maneuvering to, like, get little babies out of bassinets in the middle of the night, right? You're feeding so many times during the day. You're in such survival mode that thinking about moving in any sort of proper way is basically not going to happen in those first 2 weeks. So I think that splinting short term for like the first 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks after you have a baby, just so that you have a little bit of support, can be really valuable to, one, make you feel more supported. It can be scary to feel like this core of yours is just non-existent. That can bring up a lot of feelings of fear. So it will help you get emotionally feel a little bit more supported. But the other thing is that it will help prevent damage that could happen because, right, you're really weak and then you go and twist to pick up a newborn to feed them, or you're like trying to maneuver them to breastfeed. It just helps protect you when you're in a very vulnerable period and you've got a lot going on and you're way too tired to think about anything. Okay, so that's my recommendation. I'll talk about what type of splint I would recommend afterward. That is kind of a period where I think it can't hurt for the most part. It can't hurt. It's going to be a little bit helpful. Beyond that, after the 2 week period, right, I don't think that I think that most people probably don't need to be wearing a splint at that point. I think that then becomes a good time to start building up your transverse abdominals, right? Once you have gotten through that very critical 2 week period, to start reconnecting the brain to the core. The other thing that I see as a possible issue if you continue splinting in that very early postpartum period is that, right, if you have any pelvic floor stuff going on and you are splinting in your core, even if it's a soft splint, you can kind of, you're changing the pressure dynamics in your body. So if you are splinting at your core, you can be sending pressure downward, and then that could create things like pelvic floor issues, prolapse, etc. So I tend towards the let's not splint after that immediate postpartum period unless we absolutely need to. And I'll talk about who I think would really benefit from splinting in a little bit more of a longer term phase. But in general, I think if you had a pretty regular birth, if you're feeling kind of normally, there's no normal at 2 weeks postpartum, but if you're feeling like, yeah, I just had a baby and I feel like I just had a baby, but it's not like you're completely weak in your core, then get rid of that splint and start working on creating a foundation of core strength. So connecting to your transverse abdominals, working on deep breathing, doing everything you can to get the system working on its own. However, there are certain people for whom I think that splinting beyond that 2-week period can be very beneficial. And these are also, you know, and it may be, right, you may be watching this at 6 months postpartum, and it's possible that it could still be beneficial for you for the short term. So the people who I tend to recommend splinting to beyond that early period, there are a couple of factors. First, there are some people who really struggle to find the connection between their brain and their core. If I am teaching them to engage their transverse abdominals, hi Lauren, and they can't find that connection, right? They're working on it, they're practicing it, but they don't feel anything happening. Well, sometimes just putting a splint there, giving a little bit of proprioceptive feedback, right? That sense of, oh, there's something there. That simple act can make them find that brain-body connection. So that for those people, I think short-term splinting is a great thing to do. If you have a significant abdominal separation, a diastasis, usually, you know, I would say significant tends to be more than 4 to 5 fingers wide. That's how we measure how wide a separation is. If you are beyond 4 or 5, it can, I have found that short-term splinting can help just by bringing the muscles a little bit closer together, which allows the connective tissue that has gotten really thin and weak, gives that connective tissue a chance to thicken up. It also, again, helps create that mind-body connection so that your core starts getting the message that you want it to start working. And then beyond that, if there are also sometimes if you're carrying a lot of extra weight on your abdomen, that extra weight can pull on that abdominal separation, and it can make it, again, really hard to find the engagement of the deep core muscles. So for those people, I will, again, sometimes recommend a short-term splint to help those muscles come back online. Now, I've said short-term splint like 8 times, so let me explain what I mean. Splinting should always be short-term. You do not want to be wearing a splint for months, years. You don't. You want to use the splint as a tool to re-establish the connection to those deep core muscles. And so it will be kind of, I usually start with a 6-week recommendation, right? You go start for 6 weeks. At the beginning, you're wearing it all the time. Then you start after 2 weeks, you just start weaning off of it. So you go from wearing it 100% of your waking hours to 3/4 of your waking hours. And then the next week you drop down even lower, and you just wean off of it slowly. The other thing is that this splint needs to be flexible. The breath is essential for core health. And if your splint is too tight, you will not be able to get your breath working. You won't be able to get your diaphragm working, your ribs expanding, and that is going to not help you. So the splint has to be flexible, and it has to allow you for full range of motion in your breathing. Those are my main recommendations. There are certain splints that actually are not just abdominal, but they also go under your pelvis, and so they help protect the pelvic floor as well. That's a nice option if you are experiencing any sort of pelvic floor issues as well. Okay, I think that's it. I think I covered everything. So just again, to recap, splinting, I think it can be good. I think it can be really good if you just had a baby and you're in that crazy 2-week oh my gosh, what just happened to me phase. And I think it can be useful if you have certain considerations that make it harder for you to reestablish the connection between your brain and your deep core muscles. Okay, so if you have questions on that, let me know, please. Now, I'm gonna turn the camera around if I can and take you on a little tour. Okay, so my RV, there you go, there's the window. Actually, I'll talk while I get myself in place. So my family, we bought a used 35-foot fifth wheel, which basically is, if you don't know anything about RVs, a fifth wheel is one that you put on the back of a truck and you tow it behind you, and then it allows for slide outs, which really helps increase the space that we have. So it's 35 feet long. I think it's about 280 square feet, and shockingly, it really doesn't feel like too little space. Hey Jenny, how far postpartum can you splint? So if you watch the rest of the video, you can splint So I like it right at the beginning, first 2 weeks for sure. And then after that, I really only recommend it if you have a couple of key characteristics, and those are a significant diastasis, you can't find a connection to your transverse abdominals, or you're carrying significant weight in your abdomen. But go ahead and watch the rest of the video because I cover that in more detail. And that can be like, right, you had your baby 5 years ago, but you have this separation and you can't get your abdominal muscles to fire. Cool, you could still splint, okay? All right, so we have a 35-foot fifth wheel. It's like 280 square feet. And please, anyone, stop me from my tour and ask me questions about splinting because that's really more important. Okay, so I'm gonna turn it around. Here we go. We bought a 9-year-old one and we renovated it. So this is why it's like really white. Okay, this is my living room. I'll just walk you around. Here's my living room. Feels really silly. And I totally cleaned it up today, so it doesn't usually look like this. Ignore the dishes in the sink. Right, so it's more space than you would think. We have a whole table. That table pulls out. We can all four sit at it. Couches. Then I'll show you from the other side. This was really dark though. All of these cabinets were like cherry, not really cherry, but really dark. Here's our TV that we almost never use because it doesn't work very well. But we painted everything white. We put in new floors. We worked really hard on it. We took out all the furniture, right? We added this table. We added this couch. We took out what was here. Now I'm going to walk you into my kids' room because the kids are always what people are most interested about. It is messy. Don't judge. It's actually not that bad though. So they have messy bunk beds. And of course my daughter asked Santa for the biggest teddy bear possible. So we now have this giant teddy bear in the RV. But they have bunk beds and you can see, let me just move this. My husband thankfully is really handy. So he like redid down below their bed. So we have lots of storage space for like really versatile toys. Legos, Magnetiles, books, obviously, lots of little people and animals. And then they have a little map and their table where they do their artwork and this art cart, which has been just the most amazing thing. They like love being able to do all this art. And when you have little space, as long as you have lots of art stuff, kids are happy. Okay, this is their dresser and there more toy storage there. And then we sometimes throw other things up there. And my daughter almost got all her clothes in the dresser. Okay, so coming back out of their room, so they have their own room. Then we go, here's the hallway. And then here's our bathroom. It's really not very fancy, but it's like a total normal size bathroom, right? Not normal, it's still very small, but it has everything we need. And then this is my bedroom / office. So where the desk is actually used to be a master closet. But we knew that we needed to work to live this way. So we took out the closet and we made, I say we, my husband took out the closet and then he put in this desk and now we use that as our office space. It fits both of us miraculously. And then we basically raised up the bed. Let me see if I can back up. We raised up the bed and put these dressers underneath because we didn't have a closet anymore, so we needed more storage space. So all our clothes go under the bed. And then IKEA was like our favorite place on earth. We got all these Trone storage bins from IKEA that help keep everything organized. You can see there's more there. Okay, so that's it, everybody. The RV. My daughter named it the bump crap. She doesn't even know what crap is, but that was her term when we first got it, and now she changed it to Sparkle, but we still call it the bump crap. So there's the tour of the bump crap. So if you have any other questions about splinting, RV living, all that good stuff, let me know, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. I will see you all very soon. Bye.